Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar. My name is Sarp Oskin, and I'm the Senior Director of Markets here, responsible for the commercial strategy of the Power and Renewables team at Enverus. The Enverus Power and Renewables team was formed at the beginning of this year, but Enverus is by no means new to the Power and Renewables business. PRT, which is the leading provider of load forecasts for the industry, has been a part of the Enverus portfolio for more than 4 years, and we have also added alongside PRT Energy Acuity in February, which is the most in-depth provider of project, RFP, and policy tracking within the power and renewable space, as well as of project development and siting analysis tools in the industry. In addition to that, the most recent addition to the Enverus family is the marginal unit set of tools which allow for us to understand congestion in the electric grid, and it helps us to answer what is actually a very, very difficult question to answer, but is absolutely crucial to the welfare of the economics of any project in the power space. So with that being said, having brought all of these different services under one umbrella at Enverus, we have the most up-to-date and single source of truth for power and renewables data and software as a solution services. And that makes Enverus not just the market leader in the power and renewable space, but the energy space as a whole. Today, as a part of our Power and Renewables Playbook webinar series, we're going to be talking about renewable energy project developers and project tracking. And with that, I'm going to introduce our speaker for today, Mary, who's a product manager at Enverus. She joined us through the energy acquisition, and she will lead us through the presentation. Mary, take it away.
Thanks, Sarp. Hello, everyone. My name is Mary. As Sarp said, I'm a product manager on our Power and Renewables team. Over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk us through how to use Power and Renewable Foundation and the project tracking add-on within the Prism platform to quickly understand what are the current market trends are, where it's heading, and where to find the best sites for your power project. Before diving into this introduction, I wanted to provide some background on the Power and Foundation offering and the project tracking offering. With Power and Renewable Foundation, you have access to substations, transmission lines, power plants, and power production data in the US and Canada. This offering helps you to answer the following question: where is generation located? How is the grid structured? The project tracking add-on includes in-depth analysis on power plant stakeholders, power plant life cycle, and also power plant's performance, so that you can identify which assets, for example, just started construction, or which assets performed better in the last 6 months. With that introduction, let's get right into it. So the green dots here all represent an operating power plants. If we look at the current operating mix today, it's mostly dominated by natural gas with over 44% of the current operating capacity. It's followed by coal, 19% of the current operating capacity. Nuclear, wind, and hydro account for about a quarter of the current operating capacity, and wind only 4% right now. We can scale down this analysis by looking at it state by state. For the purpose of this webinar, I will focus mostly on Texas. When we look at Texas current generation, we can see it relies mostly on natural gas right now, with about 52% Then we have wind, 23%, followed by coal. What's interesting when we look at how states supply their energy right now is to understand how it's going to change 5 years from now. For this, I like to take a step back and actually look at the integrated resources plan analysis and understand how power utilities today are planning for the future. Some states require the utilities to fill integrated resources plan every 2 years or 5 years, depending on the state. And these integrated resources plan are roadmap for utilities to plan on how they're going to meet the future demand, either with supply or demand side resources. When we compare here the integrated resources plan filled in 2017 with the one filled in 2021, and if we look here at what is going to be decommissioned, we can see that the share of coal has increased over the time. Same for nuclear and as well as oil-fired assets. When we look at the capacity addition, we can see that natural gas is still a resource that will be added over time by utilities, but the share of natural gas is much smaller when you compare it to the share of the share of solar here in yellow, of wind in green, renewables in general, and most of all, battery storage. We can also look at this analysis year by year. So here I'm looking at the most recently filled integrated resources plan by utilities. And we can see this pattern of coal being decommissioned over time and being replaced by solar, wind, and storage assets. With this being said, we've seen that Texas' current mix right now is dominated by natural gas. We have very few storage operating, only 0.2% of that operating capacity right now. So we can ask ourselves how Texas generation mix will shift when we look at the bigger picture here. If we start looking back in 2000, we can see that until then, the new capacity additions were mostly natural gas assets. A little bit of coal here. We have to wait, let's say 2007, even if it started a little bit earlier, to actually see wind being a bigger share of the new capacity addition, and 10 years after to see solar assets here. The big jump will happen in the next 2 to 3 years. Texas is planning to add 74 gigawatt of solar over its network, 25 gigawatt of battery storage. And that's interesting to know that they're planning to add much more solar and storage than wind, which is only 17 gigawatt compared to already all the wind that is operating. We don't have any coal capacity being added in the future, and only 1.2 gigawatt of natural gas being added in the future. At this point, we kind of have an overview of how the market currently looks today. Here I focused on Texas, but you could just do this analysis for any states that you like, or if you want to focus on a specific interconnection system operator, this is also available since Prism is highly customizable and scale up and down pretty well. So now that you have seen the current landscape, how it's going to look like in the future, let's have a look on who's involved in this current landscape and how it's going to change over time. One of our strengths is that our analyst teams decode in all the projects filling that we track every day. So state PUC filling, generation interconnection agreement, permit, they try to identify which companies are behind LLC or shell companies, so that instead of spending time to understand who is involved in which project under LLC names, you can really focus on the big picture and understand who is in the market today and who is in the market now. So let's look at the top developer of renewable operating assets right now in Texas. So we can see in our top 5, we have NextEra with a little bit over 2 gigawatt of operating renewable capacity developed. Then we have Ørsted, Enverus, E.ON, Apex. Within a click, I can change this analysis to actually focus on the player of tomorrow's market. That is to say, just looking at my pre-construction assets and my and my under construction assets. That's interesting to note that the top 5 is actually changing if we just focus on what is being claimed. In top 1, we have Broadreach Power, followed by EDF Energy, then ECAT. We still have Apex Clean Energy on our 5th position, but instead of having E.ON on the 4th, we have Sanchez Power. It's interesting to not only see who is involved, but also like how they're involved and what is their strategy to enter like this new market. For example, Broadreach here has a bigger portfolio than EDF or ECAT, but the average size of their project is smaller, and most interestingly, it's so far just focused on battery storage technology. We then have on our top 5 two kind of teams. The team of developer working on solar and wind assets. So we have EDF and Sanchez. But then you have also ECAT and, sorry, I said it's EDF and Apex. And then you have Sanchez and ECAT who are developing solar assets, but also battery storage assets. One of Prism's greatest strengths is the ability to aggregate data at scale and conduct analysis of companies' portfolio and see who they're working with. So if you want to identify who your competitor is working with, like which supplier, which EPC, this is possible. And you can quantify this relationship, see how many projects they have in common, when these projects went online, how well they're performing. So once you have this like really big picture of the players involved, you have the good tool to understand now how to find the best site. So moving into the second part of this presentation here on how to identify your site. So right now you should have a good understanding of where the market is going, who's involved, and who you want to partner with. Who are the companies you should watch for and who might be your competition. To analyze which site or parcels I want to go to, we can layer several things together. We can look at a smaller version that we did earlier, understand the competition, how much is coming online, what is the tech type coming online, but this time at the county level. So I won't spend too much time here because we've seen how to do it at the state level. And as I pointed out earlier, you can scale this analysis really well from country, ISO to state, then to county, so that you can really understand which county, like you can understand the project development pipeline of each county. For example, you might want to avoid county where you have a high rate of projects suspended. That could be a sign of a lengthy permitting process, or potentially substations in the area having like really high network upgrade costs. So you just don't really want to go in this county, and instead target the ones with a smaller pre-construction pipeline to kind of avoid competition in this area. Something you want to look at, so once you establish the competition in the county and what it's looking like, you want also to assess LMP prices so that you can understand where your power plant might yield to more revenue. You also want to look at production metrics to understand how well your assets will perform based on the historical analysis of similar assets performance within the area. Once you're able to look at production, LMP, competition, you can really like drill down into the site selection, turning on your parcels, looking at the really nearby assets and accessing to really detailed information on substation, transmission, power plants, and also parcels information. Starting with our LMP prices here. With Prism, you have access to 1 year of LMP prices aggregated from public ISO. So we're looking here at average peak, congestion, but also negative hours and other pricing criteria, But we also add on top of this our proprietary metrics, which are solar weighted or wind weighted LMP. In the future, we're planning to extend our time range and also extend our business metrics so that you have much more tools to conduct your analysis. This analysis can scale down pretty well too, because you can start looking at each hub and then identify within the hub which counties here have the highest solar weighted LMP, because in that situation here, I'm in a solar developer's shoes, so this is the kind of county I want to focus in. Once this is possible, you can then look at your production metrics. You want to understand like how neighboring power plants were performing at the county level, but also at the power plant level. So here I tried in the same region I was looking at. I'm looking at the capacity factor by county, and without a surprise, I can see Presidio, Reed, Brewster, the counties that I identified previously with my LMP slide in my power production metrics. You can also drill down to the power plant information. So clicking in any power plant, you can look at the power production profile and access the capacity factor of each single power plant. So we have identified here a couple of counties are interesting because of the LMP prices, because of the performance metrics. So for the purpose of this demo, I picked Reeves also because it has a small pipeline of pre-construction projects and not so many projects that got suspended within the county. So once you like really identify the area you want to target, you can turn on your transmission layer, substation layer, and have information on each of these assets. You can also like look at each node, click on each node that you have nearby and look at the hourly profile, monthly profile, but also a recap of the real-time and day-ahead prices for this node over the course of the year. What I would like to spend some time here is on the project profile. What we're really strong at is combining project information at different levels. Our analysts track power plant through different sources. We have interconnection queue, EIA, FERC, primary research, and much more. What's difficult is that a power plant can appear several times within these different sources, but under a different name, or maybe not quite the same capacity because the capacity could be broken down according to different resources. And you don't have the same level of information within these different pipelines. For example, in the interconnection queue, you will have access to the POI, the point of interconnection queue of the plant, whereas in FERC 556, you will have the ownership breakdown of that power plant. Our strength is to combine all these data together and create, if you want, like a super project profile with all the little detailed information you could have access to. We have a section here that is not shown in this screenshot on the regulatory ID of the power plant, and you can see like all the number it has, so the ERCOT number, the state PUC number, or the Texas 313 filling number as well. Our analysts analyze any documents that might come across for a given power plant so that we have like really detailed information, and we're also really proactive on how we're trying to find this information. We're reaching out to make sure that the project has started construction or started operation, so that in the end you kind of know all the whereabouts of these power plants and you're aware of any permitting hiccups, for example, or if there were change of ownership, or if the commercial operation date has been pushed back. Because we believe having this really detailed information will allow you to make the best decisions and really understand your competition nearby. So once you kind of know everything about the single assets, the grid infrastructure, it's time to look at your parcel selections. So you can turn on your parcel layer. And it's not just like turning on the parcel and trying to decide by yourself which one you should pick. You can do buffer analysis if you're interested in certain substations because you know it's not tapping into too many projects. You can buffer on certain substation within a certain voltage range, or you can buffer around the transmission line as well. You have also different attributes to pre-select your parcels, if you will. We can identify parcels with the best capacity factor or parcels that are vacant right now. And once you kind of establish which parcel you want to pick, you can overlay a different layer. So here I have my wetlands, my slope, but we have endangered species and we have much more, so that you can really understand how the land is structured around the parcels and how you could avoid potential development hurdle within your platform. Once you kind of identify that, you can have access to the owner information, and you just a click away once you identify a couple of key parcels here to make the good connection and get your project going. With that, I wanted to wrap up with a couple of words. What I really like about this workflow is that it's highly customizable. It can be like carried out in just a matter of minutes and arrive at an outcome that I can trust and use to further support my decision making. It's, as I said, highly, like you can really tailor this. So you can, if you just want like to focus on wind assets within a certain age or small-scale solar, this is also possible. One of the greatest Prism strengths is that you can overlay different data sets together. And because we're able to tie substations, transmissions, power plants, and also power production, you have the best tools in hand to kind of understand where you want to go. You can also like really start your analysis like at the parcel level, but if you just like are curious about entering a market, you can start the analysis really high level and then like go a bit more granular as you can. So with that being said, I think we can now leave it to some questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Marie. And my name's Laura. I'm also on the Powered Renewables team. I'm going to be asking just a few questions. So the first question we got in was about interconnection. Do we track the interconnection queue data process?
Yes, we do. On this, I'd like to make a couple of distinctions and why they're important. So we do track every day new projects application and updates within the 7 interconnection queue. So we track their POI, we track also any documents that these power plants have to fill throughout the way, and we also track where they are in the interconnection queue process. If the interconnection agreement is in progress, for example, or if the power plant just completed its feasibility study. What's interesting within Prism is if you just want to focus on power plants registered within an interconnection queue, you can turn on that filter. So you can really focus on these assets. However, if you want to enlarge your analysis to the ISO territory, you can as well. And this is where the distinction is, because not all assets have to register to the interconnection queue, especially if there are smaller assets like in Texas. Assets below a certain size do not register to the ERCOT. So you can have the flexibility to either conduct your analysis at the really interconnection queue process level, but also the ISO territory level.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Next question here is regarding layers. Can you upload your own layers for the siting analysis? And is it possible to see the ownership breakdown for those projects?
Yes. So within Prism, you have the ability to download your own shapefile. So that, and WMS as well. So you can like really customize the layer that you have. And if you have some like company like layers on some project you've already pre-identified, these are like layers you could upload within Prism. For example, like the economic opportunity zone or any like endangered species layers that you'd like to put on top of analysis. This is possible. Regarding the ownership level, when it's available, we do track it. And we do tie to power plants owner name, how many each owner has at stake in this power plant, so that you can actually see which owner only own like 50% of their assets on average, or which owner have the majority stake in their assets.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, here's a good one that just came through. Can this data be integrated with other Enverus products, such as like oil and gas wells?
Yes, yeah, you can turn on. So something I like to do, for example, when looking in an ISO or specific region, is like turning on the wells, so that I can make sure that when I'm looking for an area, there are not like wells nearby for my development assets. But yes, you can turn like every other Enverus layers that you have to further support your analysis.
Okay, cool. Okay, one more that just came through. So how is this project tracking different than what's available from like ISOs and what they present in their public reporting?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as I said earlier, our strength comes into like sewing together all the different pieces that we have. And ISO is only one piece of the puzzle that you can get projects information from. The information we're getting from the ISO won't tell you if the project, for example, will be granted a permit within a certain county. So that's why we kind of get all these pieces of the puzzle together, because if you're just like relying solely on one source, you would like miss the entire picture. The ISO is not really proactive at its tracking, whereas we are. We're like making sure the projects which under construction, what they're supposed to, especially like within the ISO, for example, you can have projects with a commercial operation date that are like really close. How can I say that? They give you like commercial operation date, but they don't really take into account like how much it's going to take with the permitting process and this kind of information. So sometimes like the ISO can give you like really optimistic number of when projects will actually come online, when we know from the ground and from our past experiences that it's not just always the case, that it's taking longer. So we tend to have a much more like detailed approach and realistic that some of the ISO could have sometime. So that would be like another difference. And the third one is we're also contacting project stakeholders involved in these power plants. Anytime we have questions, we want to make sure of something or confirm something, we contact them so that you have a really like up-to-date project life, if you want, that you will have in the ISO, which is a rather static image of where a project is right now.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Great answers. And thank you so much again for this presentation. It was fantastic. And I hope the whole audience enjoyed it as much as I did. And if anyone wants to learn more about this product, or if you'd like to see a live demo, please contact us. You can see our email address here, businessdevelopment@enverus.com. We'd be more than happy to show you like more individual workflows that might speak more to your individual projects that you have coming up, and answer any other additional questions you may have. So thanks again, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you. Have a good day.